Tübingen was the place where DNA was also first isolated. So they still have
Wow.
those, yeah, they still have those like things that has to be on the basic level to do science, and also have advanced machineries and advanced core facilities to say about. They have all those advanced instrumentation that has to come, and all those instrumentations, for example, in the lab that I am currently now working, we also have instruments that are not even in the market yet. University of Tübingen is generally said the university is the city because the entire city is full of university buildings here. In the city. So I should always have the option to change at the end of a degree or an end of a thing that I'm doing. So for that, I felt Europe would be a better option. The idea was to push science forward and also to do it in a very nice way where you have a conducive environment to also gain so much opportunities, gain so much knowledge from different perspectives, different people, and then to like decide on what has to happen. So that was the reason why Europe was the only choice for me. I never had US as my choice. As expected during this PhD is when you apply for a PhD, and if you say that you already did your master's somewhere in the Schengen area, not specifically Germany or like France I'm speaking about, but they assume that you already know the way they work, the way that is expected in terms of their work culture and how technology has to be used and how things are happening around in a laboratory setting, or when you have collaborations with other partners in terms of industries and so on. They assume that you might already know it because you already worked in one of the Schengen countries. So it also provides you an added advantage when you do your masters here. I mean, I also know people come from other countries after doing their masters, but it provides that additional edge where you're easily screened because you're also easily available for an interview, even if it has to be on site. So they can interact with you more easily if you're there within Europe. It was more of learning from people who identified or who discovered things, and they give the lecture on what they are doing. So you have this wholesome perspective because they would have been there in the field from the beginning, and they learned it from their mentors. And then when they teach you or lecture you, you kind of feel like I'm learning from the person who discovered it. I started applying for my PhD like when I was about 4 to 5 months before finishing my thesis.
Okay.
Because that is ideally a right time. Got admitted into 3 different labs.
Wow.
But
okay.
I chose to work. Also, I'm still working in the University of Tübingen, but in the hospitals. So I work in the M3 Research Center, currently working with, as I said, brain cancer and immune cells, how immune cells interact with brain cancer, and also working on primary and secondary brain cancers and like a lot of different topics relevant to brain cancer immunology. My master's program, for example, is also shifted completely to English.
Wow. Okay.
Because they want to make it a bit more international, because it so happens, I don't know how it really happens, here there would be only one international student in the course, and it always happens to be a person from Chennai.
Chennai, oh. Hello everybody, welcome all of you. My name is Shivaraman, Director of Europe Study Center. As you all know, in our YouTube channel, we have been reaching out to a lot of our successful students. Today, we are going to talk to our life science student, Vijay, who went to Germany, finished his master's, now continuing with his PhD. Vijay, welcome to the show, Vijay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. Most welcome. And please introduce yourself to our audience, Vijay.
So I'm Vijay Sarathi Sampath Kumar. So I did my bachelor's in biotechnology at Vellore Institute of Technology in Vellore. And I later moved on to Germany to do my master's in molecular cell biology and immunology. And I did it in the University of Tübingen. And now I am currently doing my PhD at the University Hospitals of Tübingen. And I'm working on like Neuro-Onco immunology, which is basically brain cancer and the immune system interaction with the cancer and so on.
Excellent. Amazing. So I have a lot of questions to ask you about your current research from a layman perspective. It will not be a technical question, of course. Basically about cancer and with the velocity that it's spreading across the globe, I guess we should seriously discuss about it. Okay. Before all these things, first I would like to start with this notation. Any biotechnology student, especially they are coming to me for UG, or at least for the PG like you. The first point that we tell these children is, you should study your UG, your PG, then PhD. I kind of set that particular parameter in their mind, then only start further discussions. What do you feel about this? Is this the right way?
Yeah, that's usually the way that it has to be in like any field of life science, that like there are people also who try that they could skip their masters in between and do a PhD directly to enter into research, which would also be an option, but it does not work in the long term, where you're skipping a major part of the thing where you gain an in-depth knowledge on particular fields. Like if you skip your master because you do a general biology or biotechnology, but if you do not do a master specialization, then you skip a major part, which then, if you later want to go into an industry or like shift to research or juggle between industry or research, then it becomes difficult because a major block of 2 years is now missing from your academic journey in general. So, yeah.
Exactly. And when kids say, sir, I am ready to do one more degree after my bachelor's, but certainly not PhD, then all these biotechnology students, maybe, several of them, I have placed them for food technology, where they don't have to do their PhD if they don't want to. So these kind of options are very important. And you cannot take up a course in molecular biotechnology and sit and think, why should I do PhD? It doesn't work that way. That's why. This is what I wanted to start the interview on this particular point, basically. So now, going back, you took biotechnology with your own interest, or somebody else told you to pick up this one and you also had interest? How was it?
It was completely based on my interest. Because I decided to do biotechnology when I was, I guess, around studying 8th or 9th standard.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I decided that I wanted to be in research very early during my school days, because even when somebody asked me what you want to do when I was studying 9th standard, I would still say I want to do a PhD. So I was very sure about my academic journey that it has to be in research.
Wow.
And amongst the subject, I mean, in school, you learn it on very basic level, that you just touch upon every subject and it's on an exam basis. You just learn basics. So out of all the subjects, one that was more interesting was biology. And then later on, when I did biology in like 11th and 12th, it was more towards DNA, RNA, and you get introduced to new stuff in cells and everything. Then I decided I do molecular genetics or like molecular biology or genetic engineering in general. But then again, I chose to do a bachelor's in a more general, broader field, so that I get to know a different aspect of what is there in biotechnology, so that then I can really know if it was really molecular biology that I like, or maybe if I like something else, for example, like food technology, as you said. So then I should have the opportunity to also change.
Yes.
Rather than restricting myself to something which is more constrained in the end to, shift from.
But very surprising. At the age of 70, to have this level of clarity, Vijay, hats off. Because the choice that you made was perfect. You should have wider application when it comes to your bachelor degree selection. After 4 years, you do not know what will be your interest. For people to more understand, for Vijay, for people to more clearly understand, it's better to take bachelor in computer science engineering rather than taking AI or machine learning or cyber security at UG level itself. Then what is the way forward? You are already stuck in a dead end place. From there to venture out to other places and other topics becomes much challenging. So then, since it's a no-brainer for me to ask how motivated you were to do your master's. Once you decided research, of course,
after the path is fixed.
The path is already set. But my question here is, how did you perfectly choose Europe for your master's?
So, looking at different options for masters in general, it's either the US or somewhere inside Europe. Or now, I mean, Australia is also coming up right now, but then it was either the US or Europe. So, like looking at the perspectives of what can happen after a master, because I mean, I could say that I want to do a PhD, but what if when I'm studying my master's, I don't want to do a PhD later on, or I want to venture into something else, like going into an industry, looking at how industry is, and then coming back to PhD or something. So I should always have the option to change at the end of a degree or an end of a thing that I'm doing. So for that, I felt Europe would be a better option, because in the US, I mean, the idea that I had, or the idea that I'm very strongly fixed on right now, is like they always push towards going to an industry where in the end it becomes money, and it's not towards pushing science forward, or like to a greater extent, always getting money in the end. PhD in US, for example, is also mostly focused on producing like drugs or like tablets, medicines, and now they are pushing more towards AI, which would again give you money in the end, making robots and so on. But what I was focused on towards in the end was to push science a little bit forward than just the money prospect that is there, which is still important. We all need money to live, and it's all there. But the idea was to push science forward and also to do it in a very nice way where you have a conducive environment to also gain so much opportunities, gain so much knowledge from different perspectives, different people, and then to like decide on what has to happen. So that was the reason why
Wow.
Europe was the only choice for me. I never had US as my choice.
What a, sorry to interrupt, what a holistic way of addressing things, man. Amazing. You had this thought process when you were like 28, 29. I would not, okay, fine. But to have this level of thought process in which channelized way you wanted to go from a larger perspective, hats off to you. Fantastic. One more point I would like to add. In any other country other than European Schengen countries, okay, you may get a PhD admission, but in most of the cases, it is without funding.
Yeah.
How do you do research, Vijay? Please tell me. 5 years, you spend money from your pocket or ask your parents, sit and do research. I feel it's pointless and baseless.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you look, you're still working towards something, but you're not being paid for the work that you do in the end. So
exactly. And you look at people in the UK, they pay for their PhD. I feel, wow. It's like you working in a company and you paying salary.
And you pay for, yeah.
And here, biotechnology aspirants, I would like to put one point very clearly. The doors for PhD in European Schengen countries, it's only open for 90 to 95% of people, those who did their masters in Europe. Am I right, Vijay?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yes.
Is expected during this PhD is when you apply for a PhD, and if you say that you already did your master's somewhere in the Schengen area, not specifically Germany or like France I'm speaking about, but they assume that you already know the way they work, the way that is expected in terms of their work culture and how technology has to be used and how things are happening around in a laboratory setting, or when you have collaborations with like other partners in terms of industries and so on. They assume that you might already know it because you already worked in one of the Schengen countries. So it also provides you an added advantage when you do your masters here. I mean, I also know people come from other countries after doing their masters, but it provides that additional edge where you're easily screened because you're also easily available for an interview, even if it has to be on site. So they can interact with you more easily if you're there within Europe for that reason. So yeah.
Yes, that's why I said almost 95% they take candidates from the Schengen zone. The common mistakes that a biotechnology aspirant makes is, first of all, when taking biotechnology, he doesn't have the idea that he has to study his master's and his PhD. Second is, they do their master's back home in India or a 1-year degree in UK or go to a country where PhD is not funded. That also brings a roadblock to their journey. So the ideal choice would be to do master's in a Schengen country where the door for your PhD. Wonderful. Before talking about your PhD, we will little bit get back to the masters, then talk about your research and more questions about cancer at the end. So then, what was your title of your master program and which university, which country?
So I did my master's in molecular cell biology and immunology at the University of Tübingen in Germany.
So we studied a different education pattern back home in India. Many kids ask me this question, sir, I am interested to study. Can I cope up? Is what is their first question. So I know that from a different education system, how did you adapt yourself in the first semester for the European education system?
I mean, to me, it was quite easy, I would say, because also in India, from a VIT perspective, we also had a bit of European touch there where we were allowed to choose courses of our choice and the professor that we want. So which is also very similar here. But one thing that was also very different for me was each day you have a different lecturer, but you're sitting in the same class. You get a lot of perspectives from very different people, from like just the title of the lecture is given to you beforehand and the professor who is going to come, but not really the detailed topics of what is going to happen inside. So like every lecture was different and you had to be prepared in a different way for every lecture, and every lecture handles their lecture in a very different way. And one thing that is really that set apart here was they talk about the research that they do. At every lecture, in the end, they give perspectives of what they do. And to me, to adapt to all these different settings, because also the lectures here are not like as regular as we have in India. We don't have a specific timetable. Like every week there was a lecture, or maybe for 4 weeks we had one particular lecture, and then we give the exam right away, and then we are finished with that course completely, and then we go to the next course in the next month.
Wow.
So it also makes it quite like easier for you to be focused, because you're learning only one subject for your entire 4 weeks, and you don't have to focus on like, do I prepare for this exam or the other exam? So in a way, it makes it a little bit easier, but also to understand the system of how they teach and the way they like give you the lecture slides in hand, and like the different examination patterns that they have and everything. That was quite different to me in the first semester, I would say, but with time you have to get used to it, and that is how it happens. Like all of us get used to it with time, and then it was an easy thing from the second semester for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, first semester is always a challenge. I also studied abroad, especially in Europe.
Yeah.
So first semester is like, what exactly is happening here, and what am I doing here?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it starts, but slowly, reality sinks in, and we tend to adapt. And that's why these European professors and people, whenever I meet them, they always say, you Indian students, you are really adaptive. So if the child just focuses and puts in some extra efforts, they come out with flying colors. Similar to plenty of students that we have sent. So then, I have asked this question always. It's a template question for me. Without qualified, dedicated professors, the learning becomes really challenging, or the learning is really, really less. So tell us, in your life science journey, how important role the European professors played.
I mean, it is humongous, I would say, because I mean, I can put a note here because I was surprised when professors say that, for example, the COVID vaccine, which was also researched here in Tübingen. So a professor was coming and telling to me that this is the vaccine that is given to people. And she was in general talking about immune therapy, vaccine therapies, and so on. And then later in the end, she said this was developed in the third floor, just one floor above where you're sitting in the lectures. So it was like, it was more of learning from people who identified or who discovered things, and they give the lecture on what they are doing. So you have this wholesome perspective because they would have been there in the field from the beginning, and they learned it from their mentors. And then when they teach you or lecture you kind of feel like I'm learning from the person who discovered it. So what can be wrong in what he says?
Exactly.
Or and also, the thing was, you also cannot go back to a textbook to learn what he says. You have to you have to learn it from them in the class. When you sit there like for 2 hours in the class, it's like those 2 hours are not there anywhere outside the class. It's not there in any textbook. You don't find it outside. You always find it just inside the classroom. Because I mean, I have had quite a lot of lecturers like this where they say that this was identified and so on. They would speak as if they have no relevance to it and as if somebody is doing all this. But in the end, they would have to know that, yes, this was done just 2 blocks away from where you're sitting, or just one floor above, or in the next room, which, gives you a broad idea about what all could be done if you know the basics of the subject that you're learning. Because always the lectures start with the base, and then it goes on, builds up, and then in the end, it's their own science that they do. So it's quite very important that what the professor teach in the class, or what they discuss about, and how do they give the space for discussion from students. Because here I have seen that there is a lot of interaction between professors and students, because they also provide the space to discuss anytime, and they also add questions in their slides in between so that it triggers some sort of ideation among students and so on. So yes, European professors have played a very huge role in my academic journey so far. And they are still playing.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you're into research. By the way, audience, what our friend Vijay is trying to say here is they teach what is currently relevant in the industry, which would have not gone to the textbooks, which would have not gone to the printing press.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever you learn, It is at the industry standards level, which matches his aspirations by the time he finishes his studies. So he is at par with the industrial requirement. That's why I always say a university cannot and should not function without industrial connection.
Yes.
Yes, that's why I use a common example. I've been using the same example for many years. It's like building a beautiful house without water and electricity connection. You may have a 10-storage building, but without water and electricity, the building is useless. Same, a university should have excellent professors with industrial connection. Yeah, that's how it is. And you beautifully summarized the role of professors, in your journey. Because people nowadays, they ask me, sir, why should we go to a university? I learn everything online. I say, boss, there is no replacement. Okay? Studying under an experienced professors with cutting-edge laboratories, with industrial connection and a motivated student. There will be no replacement for this, even in 2050 or whatever year it is. There is no replacement for these sort of systems. And people tried what? Online education. People tried work from home. What was the end result? No. Certain things never change. Certain things are just the same. Wonderful. So then, right after, as you said, your second and third semester were like pretty smooth for your journey because you had a good support system. What sort of, I know that they have a great infrastructure, but I want to tell in your words, I want you to explain the laboratories, the infrastructure that they had during your master program at your university in Germany.
So to talk about generally from the University of Tübingen perspective, there are 3 excellence clusters to talk about. One excellence cluster that is focusing on machine learning, and the other one is focusing on microbial infections, and the other one is focusing on cancer. So, I mean, in Germany, a presence of an excellence cluster is more like having something specific like CSIR or specific institutes in India where they do very focused research. So it's more as an anomaly to that, where they in-depth focus on research on cutting-edge technology, where they have close industrial partners to talk about what technology do they need to do this research, and the industry just optimizes their instrumentations for the research that has to happen. So this was very common across Tübingen. And like to add a note about Tübingen. Tübingen was the place where DNA was also first isolated. So they still have those, they still have those like things that has to be on the basic level to do science, and also have advanced machineries and advanced core facilities to say about. So for example, if you have to do some flow cytometry or some specific analysis relevant to any field, they also have core facilities everywhere around the campus where you could do this type of analysis, and they have the support system in terms of software analysis and so on. So, I mean, University of Tübingen is generally said the university is the city because the entire city is full of university buildings here in the city. So, and then everywhere you go, it's always you see that this facility is here, this facility is here, you could do this here, and like they have all those advanced instrumentation that has to come, and all those instrumentations, for example, in the lab that I am currently now working, we also have instruments that are not even in the market yet.
Wow.
So we are still testing it so that we see that if it's really capable of doing things that the company is claimed to. Because a company can claim like 100 things that an instrument can do, but a person who works on the bench should say that, yes, it does all those 100 things. It cannot be that a person who... So that type of an atmosphere is given in Tübingen, where like students are also part of our lab. So they also get to see this instrument even before it goes to the market. So when they go and tell it to their colleagues, like they feel so overwhelmed about it that they are working on machines that are not even in the market yet, and things that are about to come into the the industry, or things that are yet to come for like human use in general, and so on. So
excellent.
It's a wide variety of infrastructure.
Exactly, because I have listened, not only in Germany, any countries where I have sent my students, when they study in the top public universities in a particular Schengen country, they have excellent, amazing infrastructure. Not only Germany, I mean, entire Schengen, they offer such opportunities.
My master's program, for example, is also shifted completely to English.
Wow. Okay.
Because they want to make it a bit more international, because it so happens, I don't know how it really happens, because every year there would be only one international student in the course, and it always happens to be a person from Chennai.
Chennai, oh, okay.
Somehow this was the trend in this course for the past few years, because
Wow.
yeah, it was always the case. So, but now they have made it a bit more international and also changed the course pattern a bit, because they want to also integrate various other aspects that is there around. Like, because it was more restricted to molecular biology, now they want to make it more microbial technology and also plants, microbiology, and so on. So they have made it modern. But
so then, when did you complete your degree, and when did you start applying for your PhDs?
I finished my degree on like 29th of January, and I started my PhD on the 3rd of February. I just had a weekend time before I could change from a master student to a PhD student. But I started applying for my PhD like when I was about 4 to 5 months before finishing my thesis,
Okay.
because that is ideally a right timeline, because it can also be earlier, but it shouldn't be no later than like 5 months before, because 3 months is a very short time to search for
Very short
labs and
time,
then
yeah.
apply for. It's a very short time. So at least 5 to 6 months would be nice. So I applied like when I finished in January, but I started applying around June, July. So I
Okay.
had this 5 month time plan to have all my options, but I also had my options ready. So I just started applying in June, but I had my
Okay.
options already ready by April. So then I segregated things and decided where to go, where not to apply, and what would suit me. And then, yeah, that is how
Which
it was.
university?
6 months was quite nice.
Super. So which university selected you for your PhD, and what was your topic of research?
I mean, now, I got admitted into 3 different labs,
Wow.
but
Okay.
I chose to work. Also, I'm still working in the University of Tübingen, but in the hospitals. So I
Okay.
work in the M3 Research Center. So I also had another lab from the M3 Research Center that offered me a PhD, and also another lab from Münster,
Wow.
from the University of Münster, that offered me a PhD, but I decided to stay in Tübingen because this was very close to what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And yeah, and I'm currently working with, as I said, brain cancer and immune cells, how immune cells interact with brain cancer, and also working on primary and secondary brain cancers, and like a lot of different topics relevant to brain cancer immunology.
Super. So it's a funded PhD, right? Obviously, anywhere in Europe, it's
Yeah,
a
it is a funded PhD. I'm funded by
super.
the Excellence
Yeah,
Cluster
because
of Cancer here. So yeah.
excellent, excellent. Because if it's not funded, how do we sit and work? Whether that is
Yeah.
whatever euros, we don't have to discuss about it. As long as it covers our expenses and allows us
Yes.
to focus on our
Focus.
task.
Yeah.
That's it. No, on top of it, putting aside the money, if it's not a funded PhD, the PhD is not serious. It takes its own time to finish. Nobody cares about you, and you
Yes.
have to only keep pushing. It doesn't work that way. So, audience, humble request, along with Vijay's permission, please opt and select only funded PhDs. Don't pay for your PhDs and study. This is what
I would
we
second
say.
the statement that to choose a funded
Yes,
PhD,
that's why I said
you
with
don't
your
have the
permission,
stress of, yeah, because you don't have the stress of choosing another funding opportunity rather than doing your
Exactly.
science, because you can do science instead of looking for people who can give you money to do the science. So
Super. Very, very, very well, phrased basically.
yeah.
And then, since you are into research, so how many months you are into this PhD right now?
I'm currently in my 4th month. I started in February and it's like mid of May, so currently in the 4th month.
Okay. I would like to ask you this question. Okay. You did your bachelor's, 4 years, master's, then now your PhD. If you would like to give a figure for the intensity of the studies on the scale of 10, how much you give for your bachelor's back home in India and for masters in Germany and now your PhDs? Intensity, I mean, because people should know PhD is not a cakewalk. That's why I'm asking this particular question. Yes.
So intensity, I would say it went quite high, because on a scale of 10, if I have to say how intense was my bachelor's for me to, get ready for doing all this science work, I would say it was around 8, 8.59 scale.
Okay.
But master's in Germany was around like 9.5. But now in PhD, I would say it's more than 9.5, almost close to 10 in terms.
Almost 10, yes.
Almost 10, because it has to be always, reading a lot, studying a lot, getting to know a lot, interacting a lot. Because back in bachelor's, I didn't have to worry about which products should I have to use for my research,
Yes.
or
Yes.
which one should I think about. But now it's more about how optimized can I do the research, because it also research is still like funded, you have the money, but it also have to be optimized in the end so that you don't waste a lot of money in doing something.
Exactly.
So you have to know what is there in science already. How can it be optimized? How can it be made better to do what you want to do in the end? So yeah, it kept quite increasing, and I would say it might cross 10 soon. So
But Vijay, in the way that you explain itself, I can assume and understand you are enjoying what you're doing. End of the day, that is what that matters, right?
Yeah.
You need to enjoy what you do. For example, what happens in India? 90% of the people, when they go to their office on Monday, they start dreaming about when will we reach Friday evening. When Friday evening comes, they start to think, oh my God, again Monday. So these sort of Monday to Friday football games only happens in majority of the cases where we don't look at the watch, we don't look at the calendar. We put our heart, mind, and soul into your job that you love and do. I feel,
Yes.
that's
I mean,
blessing.
that's indeed also my opinion here, because even today morning I was there in the lab.
Super.
But I didn't really worry about whether it's a Saturday or Sunday, because it is not just me in the lab. All other colleagues of mine were also in the office. So we all know that it has to be done, but someone has to do it, and we are here to do it, and we should do it. And it puts no stress, because I mean, I'm here on Saturday, but if I take off the next Tuesday for some reason, I'm not questioned on why am I taking an off. As long as I do my work on time, it's all well and good in the picture. So,
and that's why they selected Mr. Vijay for this work. You are committed, you are talented, and they know, that you will
thank you.
get the job done. I'm not boosting you, brother. This is reality. No, I have been working with Europeans for the past 16, 17 years right now. Maybe not on the research front, but, on the working front, we know how they give the work and what they expect us to do and all these things, basically. Super. So then I wanted to ask you, how many work hours? Because for a professional, for example, if he's working, a design engineer or something like that, it's like 40 hours. How about PhD? How many hours a week?
It depends, because there are two options for a PhD, and it depends completely on your professor, because my professor gave me a 65% contract. So I have to work at least 25.4 hours a week. But some professors also give a 75% contract for a PhD. It depends on how much funding do they have and what sort of a grant is being given into this project for funding. And it depends on what the funders need in terms of the project, if it needs more hours to complete, and if it needs more work, more investment of time and everything, it depends. So for a 75% person, he might probably work around 30 to 31 hours a week. And I work 25. I mean, according to my contract, I should be working 25. But when you start your PhD, it's never about how many hours you work.
Yeah. Because you have to set the correct. You have to set the fundamentals right. So we don't have to look into the time right now. Now it's like getting on the track and slowly shifting gears and settling down at an optimal speed and distance. Super. Excellent. Now I wanted to ask you, now that we have spoken about your research and all these things, why cancer is spreading like a wildfire? Talk from explain that in a layman terms. Don't tell some DNA names and all. Okay. Explain us why this is spreading so rapidly. I don't know. I'm not sure. I did not read it anywhere. One of my friends was talking. In the upcoming years, out of 4 people, 1 will have cancer. We were just discussing. I don't know from where he read it, and I don't want the audiences to assume this as a official news or something. It is just he said, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to ask you this question.
Yeah, actually, it might be true. I have not read I don't remember the exact statistics of how much is the prevalence, but cancer in today's life is spreading mostly because also of the lifestyle that we all are having. Because one of the major reason of research that is also happening in the workplace that I'm doing, but from another group, is how lifestyle influences cancer. Because the Western diet that's predominantly kind of rich in fats is also a reason to induce cancer. And also, if you look at the global map and the prevalence of cancer, it's always seen that towards the western side, it always increases from the east to west. This has been shown in multiple studies, because in the Southeast Asian countries like Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, they say that they eat more fresh food rather than this pre-cooked or pre-made frozen foods. They eat processed food. So they eat more of fresh food, but on the other side, it also comes with habits of smoking, drinking, and which is also, the
major... that we ignore. We don't care about them. Okay. Their life, they screw it up, let them suffer. But, without knowing, people are getting it. So that is our area of concern.
And also, like from the beginning, the evolutionary genetics is now pushing, through some sort of an evolution, which is what evolutionary biologists believe. And cancer is one of the way where it tries to reduce the genetics that are not very fit for survival.
Okay.
There has not been a complete claim that this is absolutely true, but there are also some studies that show that through the part of evolution, humans have to become something better than what they are right now. So we have always been doing that. We have, first we were not even able to stand, and then now we are standing, we are talking, and later on now we might do something else. So in that process of evolution, cancer is one such thing that plays a major role. And there are also studies where cancer does not come to a person only until he is in the reproducible age. And after that, whether you're addictive to something or whether you're eating processed food or not, your body does not want to know that this person shouldn't be affected by anything. So initially, the idea was cancer was it can be a disease that arises from bad habits and so on and so forth. But now, with so much research happening, it also develops from the lifestyle that you live, or being so lazy, for example, for 10 years sitting on the couch and not doing so much work, for example, also results in cancer. Because people also say that, now these AI watches in terms of iWatch and all these watches say you're sitting for longer time, so stand up and walk, or probably you're in a very loud environment and move. So research has also shown that if you are very dormant looking at the screen for long hours, like what IT employees have to do, it's unfortunate that they have to do that for their work daily, but looking at a screen for a long time, they're also sitting dormant. They are not able to move so much around. And even if they move, if they have a wheelchair, they just move with the wheelchair to the next person and they don't really stand up and move, which all, somehow roundly influences on their lifestyle. And then in the end, it leads to diseases like cancer. And then because cancer cannot be just cancer in the beginning, it can be some other disease, which might result in cancer in the end.
Wow.
So there are a wide variety of things that is going in our everyday lifestyle that is leading to cancer in the end.
As our researcher has summarized, I would like to say these 2 points: ignore processed food, have fresh fruits, fresh foods, and then these high fat content and all those things, please avoid. And the fourth important, what he said was, have a active lifestyle.
Yes.
Keep moving. This is the best way to stay away from cancer. And even after all these things, whatever happens is fate. That is how we need to stay right now until the researchers find out. Even after doing all these things, if a person still gets it, then what? The researchers will answer in the upcoming years.
Because, research-wise, it's also quite very difficult to have a medication for cancer because, we have been through these many years. For example, if I have to talk about brain cancer where I work on, there is just one approved medicine. And it has been in the market for around 10-15 years right now. It's FDA approved and then it is being used in patients, but still the care is just palliative where you can survive the patients for 15 months and not more. So, as we grow intelligent, cancers grow much more intelligent than us.
So the best way is right now, when you're healthy, when you're young, or whatever age you are, avoid all these things that we said. That's for me also, for everybody watching this, because this is directly from the researcher, who is involved in projects and information and details, which is not in the internet or your chat GPT, which is not in the current practice levels. He is providing all these insights for the benefit of our audience. Wonderful. So now, we discussed many things, and thank you so much because you explained it in a way where even a layman will understand. You get my point? Yes,
I don't want to be too scientific because when this also happens when I talk to my friends, they would say, talk in a way that I understand, not that your colleagues would.
That's why I told you, brother, don't tell this DNA because of this DNA, this is happening and all, then we are lost. Wonderful. Then, shifting back home in India, how happy your parents are looking at your journey?
They are very happy, and to say so, my parents are also in the US right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because my father is working there, and like my mom, my sister, my father, all of them are there, and they are very quite proud because it took a time for me to convince them that PhD also pays me. Because
Yes.
for some time they were also not quite convinced that PhD is work and PhD is still academics, and they even asked me, when would you complete your studies, when I started my PhD. I mean, I would also understand, because from an Indian setting, PhD is still a studies, you're still a student, and like it doesn't pay you the way it has to actually in India, which is quite also unfortunate, where like they're
Yes.
not well paid enough to sustain themselves alone in a city where they always have to also depend on their parents at some point. But now they
Yes.
are very happy that I'm doing a PhD, I'm doing some quite nice research, I'm in a nice place and everything. So they're
And they
very
are
proud
going
of
to
me, I could say so.
see. This is what a child should do, la. Make your parents proud.
Parents.
You know, that's
Yes.
what it is. And imagine their level of being proud when they call you Dr. Vijay. That's going to happen very soon.
Yes.
How many years is your duration of your PhD, brother?
It's 3 years.
3 years. Okay, it'll go like this. Yes.
Yeah, because here it is an idea that every student finishes it within the 3 years and do not extend it like 5 years, 6 years, or sometimes 10 years, where I've seen people like doing their PhD. But in Europe in general, it is said that you're here for research, and we are paying you for research, and your day is not disturbed, so do your research.
Yeah,
Do
10
not
years,
take.
it's a waste, I guess. 3, 4 years,
Yes,
plus or
because
minus,
3, 4,
close the
yeah.
chapter.
Maximum they allow us to finish, because the funding that I have currently right now is for 3 years, and then it can be extended for another half a year, or if I am very strong about it, I can extend it for another year. But after my fourth year, there's no possibility that you would get your funding coming. So you're also under the pressure that you finish your PhD in time, because in the end, when you go out and put it in your profile that you did a PhD for 10 years, it does not make any relevance, because what did you achieve that you have to work for 10 years?
Exactly. Everything should be done within the time, brother. And
The time
best
frame,
part
yes.
is, when I saw your LinkedIn profile, you finished your bachelor's, immediately started your master's. And you finished
Yes.
master's, immediately started your PhD. So it's good to keep crossing all these things ASAP, so that you get your
Yes.
doctorate. Then you are at a different level. Then you pick and choose what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
And I think when you finish your PhD, you should be like 26, 27.
Yeah. If
Oh,
I say
wow.
3 years from now, then yes, 26,
Imagine.
27. Yes.
Exactly. At the age of 27, you are Dr. Vijay. Man, really
Yes.
hats off. And other Europeans, when they become finish their PhDs, maybe 32, 33, even 35.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's the point. I always keep telling life science students, please. After bachelor's, it's a comma. And after master's, it's a comma. And after PhD only, you can decide if it's a full stop or a comma. This is what I keep
Yeah.
telling. And you are you are a living example of what I have been telling to all my PhD. I don't know much about PhD, but I know certain things which I learned from my students and my friends when it comes to biotechnology. Wonderful. So then, before we sum up this beautiful interview, any words of, I would not say advice, input. I never use the word advice. Okay. Input to the upcoming life science students, how mentally they should be prepared.
I mean, one piece of advice would be to not restrict yourself to anything in the beginning, because
Okay.
nowadays when some of my juniors from bachelor's, they ask me to apply for a university. I mean, I'll take the example of an application to a university to make sure that it also fits within what we have talking right now. So they say that I want to study something, for example, in biomedical engineering. They don't really focus on choosing a master's program which is biomedical engineering, but rather they focus something which is more towards cardiovascular technology, or like more restricted into some field. And then in the end, the question comes, can I really now change? Because once you study in cardiovascular technology, suppose you're going for a PhD or an industry, once you put the name that it's very specified, then you're restricting your options for a PhD and the industry in general. not just for a PhD, also talking from an industrial perspective. So because there are not so many companies, hardly maybe out of 10 companies, 2 companies will work on cardiovascular technologies. The rest all will work on other biomedical devices. So, yes, obviously, in the end, you have to land in something that you want. But in the meantime, if you need something to gain a bit of experience, because as you said, to not leave this gap or any, full stops in between, because I know a friend of mine who was applying for jobs in Germany, but then the question was he had a 6-month gap, which is the normal gap that we have between a bachelor and master if we start from India, because we finish our bachelor in April and here master starts in October. But the company needed the reason for why this academic gap happened. They wanted him to give an explanation for this. So in case if you decide that you're taking a gap for something, make sure that you have a reason that you can explain it in the end, because maybe it's not asked for me right now, but in the future, someone might also ask me if I leave a gap. For example, if I'm applying for a postdoc, the professor can easily ask me, why did you go out of research for like 6 months? What happened? And I should have a reason. Yeah, I should have a reason. So reason that convinces them that I'm fit enough to come back into research, fit enough to come back into the work. So to prepare yourself, just keep yourself broad enough, learn from everything that you kind of see, or getting taught about, just not specifically on what you just want to learn. If you grasp everything, and then at least if you don't have to, like specifically if you don't get option A, you have your option B ready, where in option B, you gain your experience that you put to get your option A.
Wow. So, all that you're trying to say here is keep your options wider so that
always wider. Yes.
And then, of course, stay focused, stay committed, and love what you do. You will achieve greater heights in the life science division. Of course, you should have abundant patience and focus. Am I right, Vijay? These two things are very.
That is absolutely true.
Absolutely true. Yes, for a life science student, if you don't have all these things, better study something else, please. Life is once. Don't make wrong choices and expect magic. No magic will happen without logic. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. Wonderful, man. Nice talking to you. I learned a lot of things, and I'm sure this interview will inspire a lot of people to pick up biotechnology. I'm still a great fan of, life sciences and the value addition that it does to the life. And biotechnology is an important subject which people should take, provided they are interested, committed, and focused. Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Vijay. And all the best for your PhD. And of course, maybe followed by a PDF. I don't know. Things will keep, panning out.
That would definitely happen, because I am
why not? Why not?
Only in research. So that would definitely happen.
Once you love what you do, forget about everything else, Vijay. You are going to set great examples, and the heights that you reach should motivate thousands of Indian students. And we at ESC, we are really proud and looking at all your achievements. And I would be waiting for an email from you or a message in LinkedIn with the photo of your PhD, when they award you the degree. Okay, I'm looking forward. Okay,
and all the very best. Thank ESC for this journey. I mean, a kind note of thanks to you, because
thank you.
I mean, I came to ESC with this note that I don't want to miss my deadlines at any point of time. It would be nice if somebody really helps me choose. Because I was quite fixed with what I have to study, but I also had a university list, but I was not sure whether am I doing it right. So that's where ESC helped me.
Thank you.
In doing this, that the application was on time. I had reminders to send in documents. So they took care of everything for me, and I should also thank you for that.
Thank you so much. We are really proud of you. And what we did was minimalistic. And you are here at this position all because of your efforts. And I'm sure if somebody watches this interview and even one person picks up life science domain because of this interview, I'm sure
would be very happy.
Going to be really happy. Exactly.
Yes.
And thank you so much for doing this interview. And in this interview, Vijay, we only spread positivity, knowledge. We motivate kids, and we encourage spend less, learn more. Why we should spend so much? When German gives you free education, like how you studied, why we should spend more and study. That's what it is. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Almost 1 hour we spoke, and best wishes to you. All the very best. Okay. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.